Welcome everyone to the first of our new age of networking sessions. I'm Lisa Collins, Head of Marketing and Membership Engagement at IABM, and I'm delighted to be with you to moderate the last two sessions of the day. As I was just saying to Michelle, Lee, who was with us before, I actually connected with him on Guild to deliver the session, and I think he's great. And building communities has certainly been a trend over the last 18 months, and I've certainly taken the opportunity to join a number just to meet new people and keep the networking going. I was definitely a little bit open-minded about some of the more app-based platforms, but I have to say Guild has certainly expanded my network and supported me with new ideas and contacts. So to tell us more about the secret sauce, I'm pleased to welcome Michelle Goodall, who is CMO from Guild. Michelle, welcome, and I'm going to hand straight over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me, Lisa, and hello to everybody. My name is Michelle Goodall, and I am CMO of Guild, and thank you very much for that glowing recommendation. I think with any tech, it's not until you start kind of using it yourself that you get an idea of what it is and whether or not it fits into your life. So I'm pleased that you're getting something from it, Lisa. I've been a marketer and a comms professional for 23 plus years, and I think what I want to talk about as well today is not just the idea and the concept of marketing, but also a bit of business development and sales as well. Actually, I was a salesperson before my career even started. I actually secretly sold sweets at school at a huge profit to try and buy myself an Atari, and I actually achieved that, so that was pretty good. And I did have some sales jobs. I sold washing machines, software, SEO in its very early days, and online PR as well. Now I've stopped selling sweets and SEO these days, and I've kicked my computer game habit, and today I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Guild. I've been a social media and community strategy lecturer and trainer for 15 plus years, and I'm here to talk about online communities today. If you're not on Guild, then if you've not seen it before, it's a mobile first messaging platform that's purpose built for creating professional groups, networks and communities. So I'm going to be showing you how businesses are adapting their marketing, comms and sales and networking to these new ways of networking. And don't worry, because it's going to be familiar to those of you who understand that marketing isn't all about advertising, broadcasting and shouting loudly on LinkedIn. So broadly, what I'm going to cover is what is a B2B online community and what is community-based marketing and community-led growth, why communities have become so important, the business case for community, what the ROI can be, and how communities can support your marketing. And finally, and I could actually do hours on this topic alone, how to succeed with community. Now, I'm going to try a poll here. So if you go to the right-hand side, and I'm hoping that at least a few people will try it. Before I start talking about communities and network, I'm actually going to start thinking about your clients and how we're doing business today, because that's certainly been disrupted. But let's actually figure out where your clients physically are and where your clients and prospects are going to be within the next 3 months or so. Now, in August, we actually asked Guild members via poll what their working plans were for the rest of 2021. Actually, how frequently would they be in the office and not working from home? So I'm going to ask you what you think. How many of them said that they'll be in the office on average 0 to 1 days per week? How many said they'd be in the office on average 0 to 1 days per week? Was it 26%, 53%, or 71%? Please vote now. I'm just going to give you a few seconds to do that. You'll find the poll in the right-hand side, questions and polls. Please do vote. Have we got any voters? Okay, well, I'm going to move it on because otherwise I'm not going to get through all my material. Oh, it doesn't seem to work. Oh, thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte, in that case, I'm going to ask you, I thought that I'd mastered the technology. Actually, that's brilliant. Thank you, Charlotte. If you can just put in what you think the percentage is in the chat bar and we'll just have a quick look. See what people think. 26% we've got there. Anybody else? Thanks, Charlotte. Okay. So actually, the answer is 71%. 71% will be working almost exclusively from home until at least the end of this year. Now, we'll obviously take a temperature check on that. Now, given that Guild's membership covers all industries and sectors, it's quite revealing. Most people are simply not going to be in the office, at trade shows, physically traveling, or networking physically for at least another 3 months. So if you haven't adapted your marketing, your communications, and your business development already, then you really do need to consider this. So let's kick off with some basic definitions around community, because we all talk about community, but do we actually know what it means? Actually, firstly, I want to explain why social networks and social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are not truly regarded as community platforms by community strategists, and also why it's increasingly difficult to use social media effectively within a marketing strategy without spending big. Now, I love TikTok. I love LinkedIn. Twitter is great. You can't actually really not have a LinkedIn profile today as a professional. And whilst Twitter isn't for everyone, it's actually allowed me personally to build my personal brand and profile. And I've built my career on figuring out how these platforms work. I've got great professional contacts and networks through them. But LinkedIn and Twitter are just that. They are networks and not communities. And there is a difference. These platforms don't allow people to build proper communities that are moderated, private, and have high quality discussions and debates. The data and the user data is theirs and it's not yours. And their business models are ad driven, and they have been for 10 plus years. So LinkedIn actually used to allow people to build communities on groups, and maybe you're in some of them still, but they no longer support it. And the moderation features are terrible. And most LinkedIn groups today are either full of spam or have been abandoned by their hosts and members. LinkedIn's business model is also to sell BD and salespeople, Sales Navigator, to reach out to their prospects. Now, actually, as a CMO, I get an average of 20 unsolicited LinkedIn connections and what I call BD spam a day, like the examples above. And video production companies actually are amongst the worst offenders. So it's actually a bigger problem for me than sales emails. In fact, send me a sales email and you're much more likely to get it read than a LinkedIn spam connection. And it actually isn't just me who's grumpy about this. Research by Censuswide in 2020 stated that 28% of LinkedIn users feel that it's full of spam right now. And it's a growing issue for LinkedIn. So if social networks aren't online communities, what is an online community? Well, a community is a social unit or group of people who share something in common, whether that's identity, values, location, a shared goal, maybe shared roles or shared interests. And communities share a sense of place. Now, whether that's a geographical place or a virtual or digital platform. So it follows online communities are a group of people who share something in common, and they share a digital platform to gather and communicate. Now, these digital community platforms include the likes of Guild and others like Insided. There's broadly 5 types of online community. I actually posted about this on Twitter today. A community of practice, community of place, communities of product, play, and purpose. So whilst you might get communities of consumers that form around something like, say, a football team or a computer game, and these would be called communities of play or passion, in B2B, a community or groups of professionals are usually drawn together over time by mutual support or benefit, and they're likely to be communities of practice, maybe focusing on a discipline or a skill where practitioners in a specific industry or sectoral role can connect and grow and learn and network together. Now, some of these communities can be broad, for example, marketers as a whole, and others very niche, for example, a subset of channel or partner marketing specialists. And other B2B communities tend to be communities of place, often things like events or spaces. An example would be the annual B2B marketing event, DigiConf, has its own community. Or they can be of product. So, for example, with big tech SaaS businesses like SAP, they'll have their developer communities. So to give an example of a B2B community of practice, membership organisation, the Marketing Society, actually have a community of practice on Guild called the Coffee House. Now, members create a professional profile on Guild, as they would do in LinkedIn as well. And then they can join that private community and connect with others, ask questions, discuss big marketing topics like the metaverse or NFTs in marketing. And the difference between social media and an online community is a real feeling of belonging, privacy and intimacy, that you're part of a group, that you have this private space. Now, the CIPD, CIPR, PRCA, and lots of other professional membership organisations have similar communities on Guild, as does the Marketing Circle for its members. But there are also businesses creating their own communities. For example, marketing or PR consultancies creating thought leadership communities around specific topics like behavioural science or crisis communications. And this is a core element of their marketing and business strategy to keep both clients and prospects close to them, and also to develop their brand and reputation. So, as Lisa said, community sort of feels like it's been big for the last 18 months or so. So what are the forces at play which mean that community has actually made a comeback? Well, the immediate thing that we think about is the impact of COVID. Digital communication became a necessity. Individuals need to connect, they need to belong, overcome physical distancing and isolation, because we as people crave connection. In business, people are making up for lost networking and conversations at in-person events. And actually, before the pandemic, there were lots of ongoing macro trends around community as well: digital transformation and the shift to mobile. Overload in social media, people were already retreating into small, more manageable groups, in some instances on platforms like WhatsApp. And brands were seeing waning brand engagement in social media due to algorithms. Actually, owning your space and owning your data has been a key driver for many brands and organisations towards developing their own branded communities. And other macro trends include remote working, portfolio roles, the passion economy or the creator economy, micro businesses, and global connectivity. What's interesting is that big tech vendors like Salesforce and HubSpot are often the bellwethers of most of the B2B marketing trends, because they're very sophisticated marketers. And actually what they're doing is buying communities such as the CMO Club and the Hustle, and then they're actually leaving them as standalones. So we're taking that as an indicator of them placing real value on communities, and that they actually feel that community can support their long-term business objectives. Now, B2B media move a little bit more slowly than technology businesses, but community is also a core part of their business strategy. And communities can extend the value of their live events. They can help them pick up on hot topics for editorial content, or even identify speakers and contributors, as Lisa said, provide a space for their sponsors to extend the value of their partnerships, and much more. Now, increasing numbers of B2B media run communities and run communities on Guild, including The Lawyer for lawyers, e-consultancy for marketing, e-commerce, comms and digital professionals, and Pageant Media, who have investment media titles and reach financial advisors and asset managers with their communities. Now, community takes time and resource, so you will need to create a business case. And here's some helpful community definitions and thoughts about the business case and the value that B2B organisations can get from investing in community. Now, community purists suggest that community is not a part of marketing. And actually, I'm afraid to say that I'm not a purist, I'm more of a realist. And I believe that in marketing-led organisations, marketing is embedded in all parts of the business, and that good marketing relies on customer insight and customer proximity. So the Charleston Institute of Marketing's definition of marketing is this: that it's the management process responsible for identifying, anticipating and satisfying customer requirements profitably. And we actually coined the term community-based marketing, or CBM, over a year ago, and actually created a free guide on it on Guild, and I've linked to it here. And some people are now calling this community-led growth. Well, it's just simply the practice of bringing professionals together around a shared practice or area of expertise to create closer and more valuable relationships with prospects and customers. And actually, we take it a little bit further and simplify how CBM might work. Let's apply it to a simple marketing and sales funnel. In B2B marketing, relationships are typically significantly lower in volume, but much higher in value. So it follows that B2B communities tend to be narrower and deeper than the mega communities that you'll see in consumer marketing, like those for Adidas or Peloton, for example. At the top awareness end of the marketing funnel, you'll typically have publicly accessible campaigns and content, albeit aimed at a particular B2B audience, which is amplified with paid media and marketing on LinkedIn, Twitter, blogs, online PR, etc. And you want this awareness building to turn into interest from potential customers who you can then qualify using lead scoring and turn these into prospects of varying potential value and influence. Now, the interest, consideration, and desire stages of the marketing funnel are perfectly suited to community-based marketing and community building. You might have a prospect or customer groups that are even tens of people or hundreds or even possibly in their thousands. At this stage, they might be broken up by topic or interest area, geography or seniority. And actually with groups and communities, you want them to be big enough to have natural momentum, but not so big as to become really noisy. Now, in these communities, you'll be engaging with prospects who've already shown an interest in what you offer, in fact, enough to join your community in the first place, and continue to build their own conviction that you've got the expertise, the authority, the credibility and the reputation in the market to be a really good choice as a supplier to them when the time is right. So actually, community is like brand building. It's slow and it's a long-term play. And when it comes to loyalty and advocacy, sales and marketing is often focused probably too much on customer acquisition, but much of the value and profit, particularly in B2B and professional services, comes from having loyal repeat customers. Community-based marketing can really be used effectively to increase loyalty and customer advocacy by super serving key accounts with super focused communities, providing concierge levels of service and support, or even these broader customer communities where members can get value from each other and you can tap into their issues and challenges and questions. Now, of course, from a marketing perspective, this is brilliant marketing insight, and you can build that into your product or service definition as well. So customer advocacy also can lead to referrals, and it's a really effective and low cost form of awareness and new customer acquisition. Now, we get to work with a lot of marketers. So this really summarizes the main reasons why B2B organizations are investing in community right now. As I said, it helps to uncover insights. They're a lot less noisy than other channels, and they help you get better cut through with your prospects and your clients. They can drive inbound leads. Importantly, they drive mental availability and awareness. They can improve your conversion rates. As you can see from this quote here from Bowen Craggs, there are guild community owners like corporate digital comms specialists, such as Bowen Craggs, who are actually reporting the actual value of the leads and sales that they're getting from their community. As I said in the former slide, they can help with client retention, upsell and loyalty. And importantly, they can become scalable customer service channels. Now, we practice what we preach. We actually do CBM ourselves. And one of the reasons I'm speaking to you today is because Lisa is in one of our many guild communities. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of CBM that we do ourselves. The first is at the start of the pandemic, we created a peer community for events owners and people who put on events on called CREO. It was set up to provide a place to discuss event venue insurance and crisis communications and event tech. And it really quickly grew to 500 members and now has more than 1,000 members, and it pretty much self-sustains. Not only was it arguably the good and right thing to do at the time, actually set this up in the first place, but for us at Guild, the results have been great. We've got client leads, we've developed brand ambassadors, we've ID'd partners, we've got product insights, and we're also asked to speak at events like this as well. So lots of good stuff has come from doing CBM ourselves. And I have experience in comms as much as marketing. So I actually host a guild community called Comms and PR Pioneers. And it's a really broad church of marcoms, comms, PR and social media professionals. And we discuss best practice, we debate big topics, and we help each other out. And the results again for Guild are brand awareness, thought leadership, mental availability. The comms sector are very influential over their clients. So we've got clients' leads coming from this. We've got brand ambassadors. We're IDing partners. And also we're testing our messaging and our proposition as well. So we get so much from these small communities. So finally, I'm going to give you some thoughts about how you can succeed with community, whether that's either joining them or building your own communities, because not everybody is prepared to, put the effort into it. So sometimes it's about joining a community as much as it is creating one. Now, we've got a short guide about being a valuable community participant with 10 ways that you can become a great community member, and I've detailed them here. But actually, for me, the single community member rule that I personally live by is give much more than you take. And you'll always have credit in the bank. People remember when you help, when you guide them, when you provide feedback, when you help them at their point of need. And this help accumulates, and it's going to come back when you need it, whether it's a job, a reference, or support in other ways. Now, we all know the type of person that we value in any community type environment, whether that's physical or digital. So I would say be that person, and please don't be a spammer. Sometimes in communities, people will actually ask directly for help around your area of expertise. And the beauty of community is if you're in credit, people will actually recommend you before you even need to respond to these yourself. And here's an example of somebody literally asking for research services in a Guild community. And this was a few days ago, but it's been replied to, a deal signed, everything is sealed, and hopefully it will be shortly delivered as well. Now, if you are ready to take the plunge and if you are ready to create a community, then there are a few tips for success. First, please don't create a community without a really clear aim and purpose. You've got to have a compelling reason for getting people together in the first place, and an even more compelling reason for sustaining that community. And it isn't just connecting and collaborating. Usually in communities of practice, it's about helping each other, sharing insights, connections, and working through problems or pains together. Media Entrepreneur Meetup, for example, is an example of this, and it's a founder and CEO group for B2B media and events owners. And look, there is the purpose of their community articulated in this slide. And a tip here is please don't ever ask a loose question when you're starting up a community. What do you want from this community? There's a lot of people who do that. Actually, the important thing is to think about it and state your aims at the start. They can always evolve, and also your community can always evolve as well. The next tip is that people are more important than technology. The best communities have the best community hosts or managers who do all of these things that I've detailed and much more besides. Now, the Marketing Society community is hosted by its CEO, Sophie Devonshire, and actually her team support her with moderation and other posts. Actually, handing your community over to a junior, a little bit like social media as well, is a recipe for failure. It's not hard to do community management and to learn it, but some people just naturally have the soft skills required in bucket loads, like Dan here, who volunteer manages the CIPR's Insider community. And we always get asked, what's a critical mass for community? And my answer is, it depends. Size really isn't everything when it comes to community, but what you are trying to achieve is. For example, the right size of your community might only be 10 people, executive advisors or investors, for example, or it could be 500 client prospects in a thought leadership community. Customer communities can be small and concierge. For example, a big tech brand who I can't name, sadly, runs a concierge community of 50 top clients in Guild and has lower tier customer support communities in the hundreds of thousands on other customer support platforms. And finally, understand that all members in a community are not equal, and that people are complex and have different motivations for belonging to a group or a community. And people are going to display roughly the same behaviours in communities as they would do in trade events. For example, most communities will over-index on lurkers, people who join but don't engage. You'll have a vocal minority, and these people will be kind of like the speakers at an event, the extroverted ones who ask all the questions and network in the coffee breaks. And there'll be community elders, people who are pretty jaded with their jobs and will throw snark. There'll be ambitious early careerists looking for mentorship or maybe to form their own opinions. The thing is, people are complex. So the trick is to adapt your community, your content and your conversations to work for different member types. For example, things like polls encourage people who otherwise wouldn't like to raise their head above the parapet to engage. And senior members might only thrive on really gnarly debates and discussions. So you've got to be prepared to mix it up. Now, I've seen that I've only got a few minutes left, but I'm going to leave you with 10 top tips for community building. The first is you've got to have a clear and stated purpose for why your community. The second is your community won't succeed unless senior people are involved in your community. A community manager or host is critical more than the technology. Despite what some people say, you don't need loads of content to power a community. Conversations are at the heart of engaged communities, not the content itself. An event is not a community. It's only one manifestation of the underlying community around whatever the event is about. Don't expect people will just get chatting or networking in a community if you set one up. It's just like hiring an event, asking people to show up and then saying, get on with it. You have to actually, start to frame your community. When starting a community, go for big communities, i.e. a single or very few groups, and then you can create sub-communities later on. Low quality discussion and engagement is a trap. Demand high quality engagement and conversations right from the start. And community is rewarding. It's a tough job. It's hard. And when people leave your community, it feels personal. It can feel lonely. It can feel like sometimes you're speaking to yourself. And it does take time to succeed, which can be quite tiring. And you can also have negative network effects. So, for example, the bigger your community gets, the less intimate it might feel. And finally, if you are going to set up a community, and if you're struggling for a name is quite important. So we've got some ideas on our blog for how you might name your community. And actually, just a note on the blog, we've got lots of free resources on there, training, we've got the CBM guide as well, and we're going to be putting much more on that over the next few weeks and months. And if I've piqued your interest in community, and if you want to join some communities and see actually how they differ from social media, we've got some discoverable Guild communities on our website. Just simply go to it and then hit the directory button. And some of these are open to people applying to join. So if you're a marketer, go and apply for Digital Marketing Pioneers, or if you're interested in comms and PR, come and join me, or even see Creo in action. So that's it. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. Do feel free to connect on Guild, but please don't be a Linda on Twitter, and don't spam me via direct messaging or in mail. Don't be a Linda.
Thanks, Michelle. That was really, really great. And we have only got a few minutes, a few seconds now remaining, but I fully support Guilds, and I would recommend joining some of those free groups because I've met some amazing people and made some great connections. Quick question in 30 seconds before we end. There's a level that you have to give between giving advice and helping somebody to asking for help from somebody else. Is there a balance between answering people's questions to asking questions yourself?
There's no real ratio, to be honest with you. I think the sort of the thing that I said is a rule that I live by, and certainly I think those people who are in community is give more than you get. So answer more than you ask. No real ratio there.